It was Monday morning. The sun was bright, and the air was cold. Students rushed into Westlake Music Academy, carrying shiny black cases and wearing expensive uniforms. Their shoes were clean. Their clothes were perfect. Then came David. He walked slowly through the school gate, holding an old keyboard under his arm. His backpack was torn, and his shoes were dirty, mud dried around the sides. He kept his head low. People noticed him. "Who's that?" One girl whispered. "Must be at the wrong school." A boy laughed. David heard them, but he didn't say anything. He just walked straight to the front desk. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I'm here for the scholarship program." The woman behind the desk looked at his clothes, then at the computer. "Name: David Carter." She typed for a second, then nodded. "Room 4B. You'll join Mr. Thomas's piano class." David gave a small nod and walked toward the stairs. His hands were shaking. He had never been in a place like this. Marble floors, gold railings, clean halls that smelled like lemon polish. Room 4B was already full of students. They sat at shiny black pianos, laughing and talking. Most of them had been playing music since they were 4 or 5. Some were even in competitions. Mr. Thomas, the teacher, stood tall with a serious face. His suit was sharp. His shoes clicked on the floor as he walked. When he saw David enter, his eyes narrowed. "Can I help you?" "I'm David Carter, sir. I was told to come here." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "The new scholarship student." David nodded. Some students giggled. "Do you have your instrument?" David held up his small keyboard. The room fell silent. The keyboard was scratched and old. One corner had tape on it. One student, Tyler, smirked. He was the best pianist in the class. His father was rich and owned several music schools. "Where'd you get that?" Tyler asked. "A garage sale." More laughter followed. David's face turned red. He wanted to leave, but something inside told him to stay. Mr. Thomas pointed to an empty corner. "You can sit there for now," he said. "We'll see what you can do later." David sat alone. He plugged in his keyboard. It made a soft, buzzing sound. Everyone else had real pianos with shiny keys. His looked like a toy next to them. For the next hour, Mr. Thomas gave a lesson about music theory. David listened carefully. He wrote everything down. He didn't miss a word. Then came the moment. "All right," Mr. Thomas said. "Let's end today with a short performance. Each of you will play something simple. Just a few bars." Tyler was first. His fingers danced across the keys. Everyone clapped. Then others followed. Some made mistakes, but most were good. Then Mr. Thomas turned to David. "Mr. Carter, let's hear something from you." David froze. His hands were cold. His heart pounded. He placed his fingers on the small keys. Whispers began again. "He's going to mess up. Watch. It's gonna sound like a toy." David took a deep breath. Then he played. At first, it was soft, just a few notes, but they were clean, pure, and emotional. The room slowly became quiet. David closed his eyes and let his fingers move. He didn't have big speakers. His keys were small, but the music was full of feeling. He played a short melody he had written himself. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It told a story of someone who had seen pain, who had worked hard, who had hope. When he finished, there was silence. Then one student clapped, then another. Mr. Thomas stood still. Tyler's face had no smile now. Mr. Thomas spoke slowly. "Well, that was unexpected." David didn't know if that was a good thing or bad. He packed up his keyboard and stood to leave. As he walked out, he heard a girl whisper, "He's different. I think he's special." The next day at Westlake Music Academy, whispers followed David down the hallway. "Did you see how he played yesterday?" "Yeah, on that cheap keyboard. He's better than I thought." But not everyone was impressed. Tyler watched David closely, his jaw tight. Tyler was the best student in class. His father donated money to the school. People always clapped when he played. He wore the best suits. Everyone knew his name. Now, people were talking about David, and Tyler didn't like that. During lunch, Tyler sat with his friends, Ethan and Josh. He leaned in and said, "He made a few keys sound nice, big deal. I bet he can't even read music properly." Josh laughed. "Yeah, you saw his shoes." Ethan grinned. "Maybe we can help him fail." Tyler smiled. "I already have a plan." That evening, Mr. Thomas told the class there would be a small school concert on Friday. Each student would play a short piece for visiting parents and teachers. "Everyone must perform," Mr. Thomas said. He looked at David, even our new student. David's heart skipped a beat. He had never performed on stage in front of a real crowd. Not in a school like this. Not with lights. Not with people judging him. Still, he nodded. The next day, students received their sheet music for the performance. Tyler watched carefully as Mr. Thomas handed David a copy. Then, when David wasn't looking, Tyler whispered something to Ethan. Ethan nodded, then slipped the sheet out of David's bag during break. He quickly replaced it with a similar-looking sheet, but one with much harder notes, fast changes, and strange chords. David didn't notice. When he returned and picked up his bag, everything looked normal. Back at home, David practiced hard. He sat in his small room with his keyboard, using headphones so his grandmother could sleep. He looked at the sheet. "This looks harder than I expected," he whispered to himself. But he kept going. Again and again. His fingers stumbled. He tried to keep up. "It doesn't sound right," he muttered. Still, he didn't give up. Meanwhile, Tyler and his friends were laughing at lunch. "Just wait till he starts playing," Josh said. "He'll be so confused," Ethan added. "He'll embarrass himself in front of the whole school." Tyler smiled. "That's when they'll realize he doesn't belong here." On Thursday, the day before the show, David stayed back after class. He walked up to Mr. Thomas. "Sir," he said, "the music sheet, it's very hard. The chords don't match the melody." Mr. Thomas looked confused. "Let me see." David handed him the paper. Mr. Thomas raised an eyebrow. "This isn't the piece I gave you." David's eyes widened. "It's not." "No," Mr. Thomas said. "This is from a higher-level class." David stood silent. "Someone must have switched it," the teacher said slowly. He looked around the room, but everyone looked busy. Mr. Thomas sighed. "It's too late to change your song now. Tomorrow is the concert. Do your best." David walked away, feeling heavy inside. He didn't know what to do. That night, David sat alone in the living room. His grandmother, Miss Lillian, sat across from him. She watched him with kind eyes. "You look worried, baby," she said. David nodded. "Someone switched my sheet. I've been practicing the wrong song. It's too hard." Miss Lillian smiled gently. "Then play what you know, not what's on the paper. But they'll laugh." "Let them laugh," she said. The world laughed at many great people before they clapped for them. David didn't say anything. Miss Lillian walked over and kissed his forehead. "Just remember who you are." Friday came. The school auditorium was full. Parents, teachers, students. Lights shone on the stage. A grand piano stood in the center. Backstage, students prepared. Tyler smirked when he saw David standing quietly in the corner. "Good luck," Tyler whispered. "You'll need it." David didn't reply. He held his music sheet and stared at the notes. They still didn't feel right. Then he slowly folded the sheet and put it in his bag. "I'll play what I know," he said to himself. One by one, students went on stage. Some played fast, some played slow. Then it was Tyler's turn. He smiled, walked confidently, and played a perfect piece. The audience clapped loudly. Tyler returned backstage with a grin. Then the teacher called. Next, David Carter. David stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright. He sat at the piano. The room was silent. He placed his hands on the keys. For a second, he froze. He could feel everyone watching. Then he remembered his grandmother's words. He closed his eyes, and he began to play. Not the hard piece, not the wrong sheet, but something else, something he wrote himself. Soft, emotional, real. The crowd listened. His fingers told a story about being the outsider, about fighting fear, about finding light in dark places. Even Tyler stopped talking. Even the teachers leaned forward. When he finished, there was silence. Then, clapping. Slow at first, then louder and louder. Mr. Thomas stood from his seat. He didn't smile often, but this time, he did. Backstage, David walked past Tyler. This time, he didn't look down. He looked forward, with quiet strength in his eyes. The concert was over, but the sound of David's piano still echoed in people's hearts. Students walked through the halls of Westlake Music Academy, whispering about the performance. Did you hear that piece? I've never felt anything like it. David, he was amazing. But not everyone was happy. Tyler sat alone in the music room, staring at his hands. His perfect performance had been forgotten. No one even talked about it. They only talked about David, and that made Tyler angry. Monday morning arrived. Mr. Thomas entered the classroom and placed a small speaker on his desk. I want everyone to listen carefully, he said. He pressed play. It was David's performance from the concert. The same soft, emotional notes filled the room. The students sat quietly. Some closed their eyes. Even Tyler looked away. When the song ended, Mr. Thomas looked at David. You didn't play the sheet music, he said, serious but calm. David stood up. No, sir. Why? David took a deep breath. Because the sheet I practiced was not the one you gave me. I didn't want to fail in front of everyone, so I played what I knew. Mr. Thomas nodded slowly. It was wrong, but it was beautiful. The class clapped. Tyler's hands stayed still. At lunch, David sat under a tree, eating a sandwich his grandmother packed. A girl named Emily, one of the top violin students, walked up to him. Hi, she said with a small smile. Hi, David replied, surprised. I loved your piece. I felt it here. She touched her chest. David blushed. Thank you. Then Emily sat beside him. From a distance, Tyler watched. He clenched his fists. That's it, he said to Ethan. Time to make him fall. This time, really fall. Later that week, Mr. Thomas announced a new competition. It's called the Winter Talent Showcase, he said. Many schools will attend. The winner will get a chance to audition for the National Youth Music Program. Everyone gasped. That's huge, Emily whispered. Only the best can go, another student said. Tyler stood tall. Guess I'll win again this year. Mr. Thomas raised a hand. This year, we'll let students vote for who they want to represent our school. The room buzzed. David felt nervous. He had never even heard of such a big stage. That night, David sat with his grandmother, Miss Lillian. Grandma, he said softly, should I even try? What if I mess up? What if they laugh? Miss Lillian took his hand. Baby, people will always laugh at what they don't understand. But one day, those same people will stand and clap for you. David nodded slowly. He opened his old keyboard and began playing. His melody was slower tonight. It sounded like a soft rain falling. The next day, the school allowed students to perform short auditions for voting. Tyler went first. He wore a black suit, walked in confidently, and played a loud, powerful classical piece. People clapped hard. Wow, someone whispered. He's so professional. Then, David walked on stage. He didn't have a suit. He wore his usual sweater and those same old shoes. Some students giggled. Others whispered, "Here comes the piano poet." David didn't respond. He sat at the piano, took a deep breath, and played. This time, the melody was different. It was brighter, hopeful, like sunshine through clouds. The notes rose and danced. Even Tyler was surprised. The music filled the room with warmth. When it ended, there was silence. Then, a loud cheer. Even some students who had laughed clapped now. But Tyler wasn't done yet. He had one more plan. That evening, a fake video started spreading in the student group chat. It showed David at home, playing piano badly. The sound was edited to make it look like he was hitting wrong notes. The title said, "David's real talent, just noise." People started laughing in the comments. Lol, is this real? Thought he was good. Guess it was just a lucky day. When David saw it, his heart sank. He knew it was fake, but it still hurt. He closed his laptop and sat in silence. Miss Lillian saw his face and sat beside him. She held his hand. "Don't let lies steal your light, baby." David didn't reply. He stared at the keyboard, but couldn't touch it. The next morning at school, people looked at David differently again. Some laughed quietly. Others looked confused. Emily ran up to him. "David, don't listen to them. I know that video was fake." He nodded. "It's okay. I'm used to it." But deep inside, it wasn't okay. He felt like quitting. Then something unexpected happened. Mr. Thomas called the whole class to the auditorium. He stood in front of the big screen. Without speaking, he played the video. Everyone watched. Then he paused and said, "This video was edited badly. I analyzed the sound myself." Students looked around. Mr. Thomas continued, "We don't play dirty tricks at Westlake. Whoever made this should be ashamed." He looked straight at Tyler. Tyler didn't move. Then Mr. Thomas turned to the class. "You will all vote tomorrow. Vote for talent. Vote for truth." He looked at David, and for the first time said, "David, I hope you play for the world one day." The next day came quickly. It was voting day at Westlake Music Academy. The students stood in line, one by one, writing down the name of the person they wanted to represent the school in the Winter Talent Showcase. David stood near his locker, quietly watching. Emily walked up and gave him a small smile. "I voted for you," she whispered. David smiled back, but his hands were shaking. He had never wanted to win something so badly, and never felt so unsure. Inside the office, the votes were being counted by 3 teachers. Mr. Thomas stood with them. He didn't say much, but when the final paper was opened, he took a deep breath. Later that day, all the students were called into the auditorium. The room was filled with noise and chatter. Mr. Thomas walked on stage, holding a small envelope. The room went quiet. "The person who will represent Westlake Academy at the Winter Talent Showcase." He opened the paper. "Is David Carter." There was silence. Then loud clapping. Some students cheered. Others looked shocked. Tyler's jaw tightened. His face was red. David sat frozen in his chair. Emily pushed his shoulder, smiling. "Go on." David slowly stood and walked to the stage. Mr. Thomas shook his hand. "You earned it," he said simply. David nodded, still trying to believe it was real. But winning the vote was just the beginning. Now, he had to prepare for the biggest performance of his life. That evening, David sat at home, staring at the piano. His fingers hovered over the keys, but he didn't play. His grandmother, Miss Lillian, noticed. "What's wrong, baby?" "I'm scared, Grandma," he said softly. Miss Lillian walked over and sat beside him. She didn't say much. She opened a photo album and showed David a picture. It was of a younger Miss Lillian, playing piano. "You used to play." he asked, surprised. She smiled. Long time ago. But people said a black woman didn't belong on a big stage, so I stopped. David's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to stop. But what if I mess up? Miss Lillian touched his heart and said, then mess up, but do it with your whole heart. For the next 2 weeks, David practiced every single day. He didn't use the school piano much. He stayed with his old keyboard at home. He wrote a new piece. It didn't sound like anything anyone had heard before. It started slow, like someone lost. Then it built up, stronger, braver, like someone finding their voice. The final notes felt like hope. He called it the melody no one saw coming. The night before the competition, David stood on the school stage alone. Mr. Thomas sat in the audience. Play it, he said. David took a deep breath and began. The music filled the empty room. When he finished, Mr. Thomas stayed quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked up to David. He placed his hand on his shoulder. I've taught for 20 years, and I've never heard anything like that. David's eyes widened. You mean it? Mr. Thomas nodded. That piece is not just music. It's a story. The next day, the Winter Talent Showcase took place at a large theater downtown. Students from different schools arrived in suits, fancy dresses, and shiny shoes. David wore his same sweater, his same old shoes. But this time, he wore them with pride. Backstage, David peeked through the curtain. Hundreds of people sat in the audience. Parents, judges, reporters, musicians. He felt his stomach twist. Then he heard laughter behind him. He turned. It was Tyler from Westlake. I came to watch you, Tyler said with a smirk. David frowned. Why? Because I want to see how you handle the pressure. You got lucky last time. Let's see if you survive tonight. David didn't answer. He turned away, heart pounding. Then a hand touched his arm. It was Emily. Don't listen to him, she said gently. This is your moment. David nodded slowly. One by one, the students performed. Some played fast. Some played loud. They all looked confident. Then the announcer said, next, from Westlake Academy, David Carter. David walked slowly onto the stage. The spotlight hit him. He blinked. For a moment, he was frozen. The grand piano sat in front of him. Huge, black, perfect. He sat down, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes. The first note was soft, like a quiet whisper. Then another, and another. The melody grew, stronger, braver. Each note told a piece of David's story. The pain of being laughed at, the fear of failing, the joy of finding music, the love of his grandmother, and the power of not giving up. By the end, the theater was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, a single clap. Then another. Then the whole room exploded with applause. People stood. Tears ran down a few faces. One of the judges whispered, "That boy just made history." Backstage, David stepped off stage in a daze. Emily ran to hug him. Mr. Thomas followed, smiling. "You did it." David smiled back. And for the first time, he felt it deep in his chest. He belonged. The night of the Winter Talent Showcase was over. But the impact was just beginning. David's performance still echoed in everyone's mind. Backstage, judges whispered to each other, "That boy, he's special." Mr. Thomas shook David's hand tightly. "I've never been more proud." Emily smiled. "You didn't just play music. You told your story." David nodded quietly. He didn't know what to say. He still couldn't believe it was real. But someone in the audience had filmed it all. From the moment David touched the piano to the standing ovation. And that person? A music blogger named Nina Green. She posted the video on her social media with the title, "The Boy with Old Shoes and Golden Fingers, Must Watch." At first, it got a few likes. Then, it exploded. Thousands, then millions. People from around the world watched. Some cried. Some clapped at their screens. Many shared it with these words: "He plays with his soul." By morning, David's name was everywhere. News outlets picked up the story. Underdog kid stuns crowd with original piano piece. From bullied to brilliant. David Carter's moment. Celebrities began sharing the video. Even a famous pianist, Victor Lang, tweeted, "Who is this boy? That performance is once in a generation." At school the next day, David walked through the hallway, and everything felt different. People didn't whisper about his shoes. They looked at him with respect. Some clapped when he walked by. Others took pictures. Emily ran up to him with her phone. "David, you're going viral. Look." She showed him a post with over 3 million views. David blinked. "Is this real?" he asked softly. She laughed. "It's happening." But not everyone was smiling. Tyler sat in the back of the hallway, scrolling on his phone. His own videos only had a few hundred views. Nobody cared about his perfect hands anymore. Everyone only talked about David. His jealousy grew like fire in his chest. He slammed his locker shut and stormed out of the building. That afternoon, David sat in the music room alone. He looked at the old piano keys. He touched them gently, then played a quiet tune. Not for the internet. Not for the crowd. Just for himself. Mr. Thomas walked in slowly. "You okay?" he asked. David nodded, just taking it all in. Mr. Thomas sat beside him. "You've gone from local to global overnight," he said. "That kind of attention can change your life." David looked down. "I didn't want fame. I just wanted people to hear my story." "And they did," Mr. Thomas said. "Now the world's listening. What will you say next?" That evening, a black car pulled up in front of David's small apartment. A woman stepped out, dressed in a fancy coat. She knocked on the door. David opened it, confused. "Are you David Carter?" she asked kindly. "Yes. I'm from the National Youth Music Program. We saw your performance." David's heart skipped. "You did?" She smiled. "We want you to audition for our international tour. It's a chance to play around the world." David stared, speechless. Miss Lillian stepped forward. "Is this real?" she asked. "Yes, Mom. We've never seen a story, or a talent, like his." The next week, David prepared for the audition. Every night, he practiced. But this time, not just for himself. This time, for the people who had believed in him. For Emily. For Mr. Thomas. For Miss Lillian. And for every kid who had ever been laughed at. But just as everything seemed perfect, something went wrong. Late one night, David got a message on his phone. It was from a fake account. It said, "You think you're special? Wait till the truth comes out." Attached was a link. David clicked it. It opened a website. There was a photo of him, taken secretly while walking home. Under it, a fake story said, "David Carter lied about his life. He's not poor, just playing the victim." His chest tightened. He scrolled down. More lies. Made-up stories. Even fake pictures of expensive things in his house. His hands shook. Who would do this? Then, a new message came. From Tyler. It said, "Funny what people will believe. Don't worry. Your time in the spotlight won't last." David's face went pale. He dropped the phone and sat on the bed. Miss Lillian walked in. "What's wrong?" David showed her the post. She read it slowly, then looked at him. "Baby," she said gently, "you don't need to fight lies. You need to live your truth." David nodded, holding back tears. But deep down, he was hurt. Why couldn't they just let him play? Why did someone always want to pull him down? But the next morning, the world gave David an answer. Nina Green, the music blogger who first shared his video, posted a new video. It was titled, Exposed, the jealous attack on David Carter. She showed proof that the fake post was made from a school computer. She showed screenshots, timestamps, and hints pointing to Tyler. She ended her video with these words, David Carter isn't just talented, he's strong, and no amount of lies will break him. Her video went viral again. This time, people defended David. Don't let the haters win. We believe you, David. Keep shining. That evening, David sat at the piano again. He began playing a new piece, one that started with pain, but ended in triumph. He called it, Still Rising. The morning sun shone through the window of David's small bedroom. The keyboard sat in a corner, silent. David was still in bed, eyes open, thinking about everything. The video, the lies, the hate, and then the support from thousands of strangers. It was all too much. I didn't ask for this, he whispered to himself. Miss Lillian walked in quietly and placed a letter on his bed. It came for you, she said. David sat up slowly and looked at the envelope. There was no name on the front, just a symbol, a white piano. He opened it carefully. Inside was a piece of paper, typed neatly. Dear David Carter, we saw your performance. We felt your music, and we believe you were born for more. We invite you to the White Piano Conservatory in New York City, a school for gifted young musicians from around the world. We offer a full scholarship. Come, share your gift with the world. David's heart skipped. His hands trembled. The White Piano Conservatory. He had only heard about it in magazines. It was a place where the best of the best trained. A dream beyond reach. He read it again. A full scholarship. That evening, he rushed to show Mr. Thomas. The teacher's eyes widened. You've been invited to the White Piano, he said slowly. Yes, they want me to come next semester. Mr. Thomas sat down, clearly overwhelmed. David, this is life-changing, but it's also far from home. David nodded. I know. I've never left the city, sir. You'll be alone, Mr. Thomas said gently, and it won't be easy. David looked down, thinking. Then he said, but my music, it doesn't belong in just one room anymore. Mr. Thomas smiled. Then go and show them who you are. Later that night, David told Miss Lillian. She listened, quiet at first. When he finished, she hugged him tightly. I'll miss you, baby, she said. David whispered, I'll miss you more. But, she added, smiling with tears, I think your story is just beginning. The next few weeks moved fast. David packed his few clothes. The keyboard, the notebook of music, the photo of his mother, and a small gift from Emily, a friendship bracelet. I know it's cheesy, she laughed, but you better not forget us. David smiled. Never. The White Piano Conservatory was more than a school. It was a world. Tall buildings, beautiful halls, students from every country. David stood at the gate, suitcase in hand. He looked around nervously. He felt small. Then he walked inside. His dorm room was quiet. His roommate, Hiro from Japan, greeted him kindly. I saw your video, Hiro said. You play with real feeling. David smiled. Thanks. I just try to be honest. The next morning, all new students gathered in a bright room with a white grand piano in the center. An older man walked in. Sharp eyes, white beard, no smile. I am Maestro Devereux, he said. And this piano, he pointed to it, will not play for anyone who is fake. Everyone looked confused. Here, we teach truth through music, he continued. Your story must speak through your hands, or the piano will stay silent. David's heart pounded. He wasn't sure if he understood, but something about the piano felt alive. Days passed. David went to classes. Music theory, technique, performance. He practiced more than ever. But the white piano remained untouched by him. It was sacred. Only one student per week was allowed to try. Only if the teachers believed the student was ready. Then, one day, David was called into Maestro Devereux's office. The room smelled of old books and wood. "Sit," the maestro said. David obeyed. "You have talent," he said simply. "But talent is not enough. Can you tell me why you play?" David blinked. "Because it helps me feel." "That's not enough," Devereux said. David swallowed. "Because I want others to feel too." "Closer," the maestro nodded. "But music is more than emotion. It's memory, pain, joy, truth." He stood up. "Tomorrow, you will play the white piano." David's eyes widened. "Am I ready?" "You'll know when you sit." The next day, the students gathered in the White Hall. The white piano stood in the center. David walked to it slowly. His heart pounded like a drum. He sat down. His fingers hovered over the keys. He remembered his old keyboard, his grandma's voice, the pain of being laughed at, the joy of being heard. And he played. The melody started soft, like a secret. It told his journey, from the boy with dirty shoes to the boy the world could not ignore. He played his first song, the melody no one saw coming. Then he added something new, a whisper of still rising. And then silence. When he finished, there was no sound, no clapping, just stillness. Then Maestro Devereux stood. He clapped once, twice. Then the whole room followed. The white piano had accepted him. David had passed the test. But he didn't smile yet. He looked at the piano. David sat on his dorm bed, staring at the mysterious letter in his hand. "Prepare to meet someone who's been waiting to hear your song." He read it again and again. Who could it be? Another music teacher? A famous artist? Someone from the scholarship board? But something deep inside whispered, "No, this is personal." The next morning, Maestro Devereux met David outside the hall. "Follow me," he said, without smiling. David followed, heart pounding, hands shaking. They walked through quiet corridors, past glass rooms filled with instruments. Finally, they entered a room David had never seen before. Soft lights, a single grand piano in the middle, and 20 chairs in front of it, empty. Except for one. A woman sat in the front row, her face hidden by a large sun hat. She didn't look up. David stopped walking. His breath caught. Something about her felt familiar. "Play," Maestro Devereux said quietly. Then he left the room. David sat at the piano. He didn't ask questions. He didn't speak. He let the keys tell the story. He played Still Rising again, but slower, softer, filled with heart. And then he added a final verse. New notes. Notes he had never written down before. Something inside him guided his hands. The room was silent, except for the sound of truth. When the music ended, David lifted his hands and looked up. The woman in the front row was crying. Her hands shook. She slowly removed her hat. David's eyes widened. His lips parted. He couldn't breathe, because he recognized that face. "Mom," he whispered. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Yes, baby," she said in a voice filled with love and pain. "It's me." David stood up, frozen. This couldn't be. His mother had died, hadn't she? "I thought. They told me." He tried to speak. She stood up slowly and walked to him. She took his hand gently. "I never wanted to leave you," she said. "I was very sick. I went away for treatment. But I lived." David couldn't believe what he was hearing. "All these years," he whispered, "you were alive." She nodded, tears still falling. "I came back, but I had nothing. I searched for you. They said you were placed in care, but I didn't know where." David's heart ached. All the lonely nights, the birthday wishes with no answer, the songs he wrote to feel closer to someone who wasn't there. And now, here she was. He didn't know whether to cry, scream, or collapse. But he did the one thing his soul needed. He hugged her tightly, as if he would never let go. They stood like that for a long time, just mother and son, together again. Maestro Devereux entered quietly. "I thought your song would reach her," he said softly. "That's why we invited you. We knew she was listening." David turned to him, still holding his mother's hand. "You knew?" he asked. "She's the reason your story spread," Devereux said. "She showed your video to us. She said, 'That's my son. Please find him.' And we did." Back at the dorm, David and his mother sat on the floor, catching up on years they had lost. She told him how she had been in and out of hospitals, how she thought he was better off staying with Miss Lillian, who had raised him with love. "She gave you a real home when I couldn't," she said. "I will always be thankful to her." David nodded. "She's my heart. But you're my song." It had been 2 years since David Carter's name spread across the world. 2 years since he sat at the white piano and brought tears to thousands. Now, the world knew who he was. But David never let it change him. He still wore simple shoes. He still walked slowly, thinking deeply. And he still believed the piano was not just an instrument. It was his voice. After finishing his second year at the White Piano Conservatory, David did something unexpected. He packed his bags and returned home, to his old neighborhood, to the street where people once laughed at his clothes, to the corner where he played notes no one listened to, and to the small apartment where Miss Lillian still waited, standing at the door like always. When she saw him, she gasped. "David Carter, look at you," she cried, wrapping him in a hug. He laughed. "I missed your hugs, Miss Lillian." "And I missed your noise," she smiled, playfully tapping his head. The neighbors actually started sleeping on time. They both laughed. Later that night, they sat at the old wooden table, sharing tea and memories. "I saw your concert online," she said. "You wore a white suit, looked like an angel." David smiled. "I was shaking the whole time." "But your hands didn't show it," she replied proudly. "Your hands were honest." The next morning, David visited his old school. Some students screamed when they saw him. "Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter." They surrounded him with phones, books, and questions. He smiled at them, signed autographs, and said something he meant deeply. "Fame fades, but music stays. Always play what you feel." Then David went to a quiet place. The music room. Still dusty, still broken. The same keyboard he once practiced on was still there, missing 2 black keys. He sat down, touched the cracked keys, and smiled. "This is where it began," he whispered. That evening, he gathered everyone in the neighborhood. He had something special to show them. They all came. Old classmates, neighbors, even the people who once whispered behind his back. A truck arrived. 2 men carefully pulled out something wrapped in thick blankets. David stood on the small school stage, smiling. "I brought something home," he said. The men unwrapped it slowly. The crowd gasped. A white grand piano, just like the one at the conservatory. It was clean, beautiful, powerful. David placed his hand on it. "This piano is not for me," he said softly. "It's for the kids who don't have instruments. For the kids who feel invisible. For the ones wearing dirty shoes." The crowd stayed silent. Some wiped tears. "I was one of them," David continued. "I didn't have much, but I had people who believed in me, like Miss Lillian, like Mr. Thomas, and like all of you, once you saw who I really was." He paused, then added, "Now it's my turn to give back." David opened a new community music room. Free for all. No fees, no rules. Just honesty and music. Every Saturday, he taught kids for free. He sat beside them, helping them find their voice, one key at a time. Sometimes, his mom would visit too. She sat quietly in the back, proud but peaceful. David always looked at her before every lesson, as if to say, "I'm still rising." One day, during a rainy afternoon, a small girl walked in. Wet clothes, no umbrella, quiet eyes. David smiled at her. First time, she nodded. He led her to the piano. "Show me what you've got," he said. She hesitated, then played a small tune. It was messy, slow, but David smiled wide. "You have it," he said. "What?" she asked. "The spark," he replied, just like someone once told him. That night, David sat alone in the music room, the lights low, the white piano in front of him. He played softly, not for a crowd, not for a show, just for himself. He played the song called Home, because home wasn't just a place. It was a sound, a memory, a hug, a second chance.